got a surprise for you on the radio. So, am I gonna like it? But yeah, yes, Chris Martin. Like I don't know. He's good at like telling you to take care of yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think he's just very like, he's very zen, isn't he? I think she's by a waterfall. I think you tried to put on her stage outfit, which was, I don't remember, it was like Chaps. I think I met him at a party. I met him at like a dinner thing a few years ago, and then I went to a couple of Stone shows. I did like 3 weeks at the end of February last year, and then stopped for about 5 months, and then came back to it in July, and then kind of did it until kind of nowish. I finished writing in like December, and it gave me a chance to kind of completely step away from it and have a real break. And then also by the end of the movie, because we were swimming so much, well, I maybe like 70. I hadn't seen him for a bit because I was away, so he'd be like, yeah. And then he'd go, do you want to hear everyone else's first single? I was like, yeah. I like the writing part the most, and what inspired it. I don't know really, I think it's hard to not, I think everyone reacts differently to like different types of music, and then really I think I don't know. I was with like the guys I was writing with, and we just wanted to make like what we wanted to listen to. At the moment, I mean, in the least weird way possible, it's like my favourite album to listen to at the moment. Like I love listening to it. If it doesn't go well, then you could regret not doing what you wanted to do. Whereas, you know, if nothing happens with it, I love it. So I think that's kind of what you should do. I think that's been my favourite part of the overall thing, is kind of listening to the album and making all the changes, and it's been fun to kind of like watch over it all. I think a lot of people, especially at labels and stuff, they like separate it, and they think because they work in music, it's like a broader understanding of music than people who listen. But I think we're all just fans of music. You know, what do I want to listen to, and try to write that. So, I mean, I hope we did it a good job, but I'm
up very early. I'm up very early indeed. The song's about like, you know, freedom and I guess self-reflection, self-discovery, I guess, is a couple things that I'd kind of thought about and I guess kind of wrestled with a little bit over the last couple of years. And then I think the song's kind of about me just accepting those things. I think it was just hot. I mean, like heat hot. I had a meeting with Rob Marshall, the director, who is the most wonderful man. He's great. And it was just, honestly, it was just a few things. It wasn't, I think it's going to be amazing. Obviously, it's an amazing film. And I want to tour next year and stuff, maybe. Don't know, that's, you know, potentially. Maybe not, haven't announced that yet. But I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be fun. I think I've been before to perform and know kind of the insanity that goes on backstage. So I'm like, the idea of like going just as the musical guest, you already get like pushed and pulled in every direction. So the idea of doing both is a little terrifying, but I'm definitely excited about it. It's going to be fun. You know, it's been about 2 years, I guess, since I put any music out, so it's nice kind of getting back to it. I've had a lot of fun making this album, so it's getting exciting now, kind of getting closer to putting it out. I've been focused on making the album, so I've been doing that for the last the last year really, since I finished the tour last July. So that's kind of been the focus, but I definitely, I definitely feel very lucky to get to kind of at least look at working in two fields that I really enjoy. So, I mean, I'm always interested to kind of see what's happening, but I've definitely been very much in album mode the last year. It's because I've been there before. I've performed on the show a couple of times, and I just know like how hectic it is backstage. So the idea of doing both is a little insane, but I'm very lucky, and I don't know, not really. The first person I asked for an autograph ever, I was on holiday with a friend's family, and he wrote like, Harry, keep dreaming or something, and I ran into him like a few years ago and told him the story, and he thought it was hilarious.
I think I was quite like scared about getting it wrong, so when I listen to it now, there's like a lot of places where I can kind of hear. It almost like feels like I was like bowling with the sides up a little bit, and I think going into the second one, I felt like very free to kind of go and make what I wanted to do, and if it sounded fun, it sounded fun, and it was a little more of an emergency stepping, and yeah, I'm very excited about it actually.
Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Not really. I used to like. Now I'm. When you're a kid and you're up at like 5 a.m. and you kind of wait for your parents to wake up. I can cook a bit, yeah. Like a nut roast. I'm very excited. I'm going on tour starting in the UK in April, and yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be fun. Last tour was great fun. Very excited to play the new album live, and I think it's going to be fun. I was going to wear this robe and a cowboy hat.
I've been making the album for about a year. I finished touring last July, and then I went away for about 10 days, and then I went kind of into the studio. So I've kind of just been doing that, really. It's been, yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm excited to be working again. I mean, for me, it's like a very uplifting song, and I think in places it's kind of dark, but to me, it's like very liberating. I think it's about like, over the last couple of years, I guess, it's about like self-reflection and self-discovery and just like freedom. It feels like very free to me, which is, I guess things that I've been trying to process and I guess wrestle with a little bit over the last couple of years. It's kind of like just accepting all of those things. I have no idea, but now I'm thrilled. I'm blushing on the way to Oslo. I loved him when I was a kid, so I think it's kind of everyone's dream a little bit, right? So many of my close friends are here. People from London who've moved here for work and stuff like that. It's like, I'd say since I left home, I've never really had the place that feels like, oh, that's my home. I'd say my house in London is the most homely that I feel anywhere, just because I've been there the longest. I've been there for like 6 years now. With like all the touring and stuff that we did in the band, I remember there was one point where we'd been away for so long that I came home to my house in England, and I was home for about 5 days, and I walked in the door and I sat down, and I was like, I don't know what to do like when I'm home at all. I'd been away for so long, I didn't
you know, I hadn't seen my friends for so long. I didn't know who was around. You know, it's not that far away from where I grew up. It's like a 3-hour drive. But London was like where the rich kids went shopping on the weekend. But also everything about it felt like it was like, this is a new challenge. And if it takes me to London, then there'll be times where people will remind me of stuff that happened that I forgot about. And you like relive it all over again. And you're kind of like, oh yeah, that was cool too. You know, the first 2 years, you don't even feel like you're working at all because you're just so happy to not be going to school. And you kind of go from also like, you know, when you're a kid and you see a T-shirt that you want and you like save up the exact amount, but you'd have to account for like the postage and packaging, so you'd actually have to like save up for this amount. You know, you're kind of like doing this, and then you move to London and you work doing stuff that's fun, and you're like, can I buy this T-shirt? And someone's like, yeah, if you want. Probably like a birthday meal I had with some friends. I used to live next to a Chinese restaurant, and it was like my favorite restaurant. So I used to come home from school every day, and I'd get up to my bedroom, like open the window and stick my head out.
To smell it.
Woo! You know? And that was like where I went for my birthday meals. One of my favorite memories, I'll give you two. The first one was when we'd just been formed as a band, there was like a picture of us that had been taken from when we were at the show, like someone's mum had taken it. And it was like the first picture of us, as the 5 of us. And we were staying at my stepdad's house. We were like living in this little bungalow, all of us together, to like practice, and we were just like singing songs, and basically just had a sleepover for like 4 days, and everyone drove down, and there's a tiny little like newsagents down the street, and we'd heard this picture was being put in the paper. So we were like, oh, we're gonna be in the paper. Like, that's crazy. So the 5 of us like left this little bungalow and walked down to the newsagents and got the paper, and then came back and had breakfast, and we're all just like sitting, staring at the paper and like passing around the paper, and we're like, let me see it again, let me see it. We were watching X Factor at my family. We were at my cousin's house the day that my audition went on air, and you know, we watched it and we're like, oh my god, that's crazy. And then we're driving home and we go to a petrol station to stop off and fill up. I'm in the petrol station and this guy goes, were you just on X Factor? And I was like, yes, I was. We were in Sweden recording What Makes You Beautiful in the studio. Someone came up into the room and was like, there's 2 girls outside. And we were like, why? And they're like looking for you. And we were all just like, but we're in Sweden. Oh my God, that's so crazy. Like, we're in Sweden. How, you know? I didn't really have a plan for like when I wanted to make a record. I knew I wanted to start writing at some point. So Sweet Creature was the first song we did. That was like in my first writing sessions when I kind of started like, I tried to write with as many different people as possible just to feel like, just to like learn. I just wanted to learn. It was like, the best way I've ever heard songwriting described is like, it's kind of like surfing in that you can practice getting up on the board as much as you want, and sometimes the wave just doesn't come. Or the wave comes, but you haven't practiced getting up on the board enough. So I kind of always wanted to be prepared to stand up on the board whenever the wave came. To finish the thought, when I'd been writing in the band, it was kind of like, if I'd ever written stuff that was just with a friend or something, it was kind of like, well, I'm not going to release any music, but what would it sound like if I was to write a song that was for me? Just didn't really want to. And definitely didn't have time to. I knew that like maybe one day I'd want to do it, but I wasn't like, I can't wait to get out of this thing so I can go make my own record. The last year of it, we all kind of knew we were going to stop at the end of that year. There was a part of me where I felt like all of the decisions I'd made as an adult that affected my life and what I was doing with my life had been made as a group. And I think there was a part of me that felt like I wanted to make some decisions for myself, where it was like, you never really had to make the decision because I could put my hat in the ring but still be like, oh, well, majority rules and I got outvoted. I felt like I need to make some decisions that just affect me. Yeah, I mean, it was hard, you know? Part of it was kind of like we were sad, obviously, that someone had left, but also sad that he was not enjoying it so much that he had to leave. Because I think at the time, too, the tour and everything was going so well, and everyone kind of got to this place where everyone was kind of living in a way where everyone was kind of enjoying it. And yeah, I'd say a big part of it was us kind of being like, wow, we didn't realize he wasn't enjoying it that much, you know? You know, obviously there was big moments for us where we were like, what are we doing? You know, so we were about to start recording a new album and stuff, and it was like, are we recording this without him? But I'd say in the moment, I guess the four of us became closer. Because we were like, okay, this is a hurdle that we weren't expecting. And I think you deal with this in many different places when you're with like traveling and touring, and it's a demanding thing and not everyone likes doing it. But it's kind of like if someone's not enjoying it, you'd rather they don't do it. But it seems like completely counterproductive to me. But I mean, I'm also not a businessman, so. I can also tell because the times where I've ever been like really, really upset by people is when I'm more upset with myself when I've got it wrong. I feel like I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character. And that's the only time I feel myself get really upset with stuff like that, is where you're like, oh, I trust this person, or, you know, I feel like they're a good thing, and then it goes the other way and you're kind of like, I got that wrong. I think for a really long time, especially when I started coming to California, there was a big thing for me where I felt like everyone went to therapy. I think for a long time I was like, I don't need that. You know, it's very like British way of looking at it, I think. And then I think there was a point where I kind of was trying to work out a lot more stuff about myself, because obviously then it was just me working.
On your own, yeah.
And I think it kind of comes with, when you're trying to make music, it's so navel-gazing. You're just like making an album, I feel like, is the most self-indulgent time you can think of. But yeah, I think with the therapy thing, I just realized I was just getting in my own way. You know, it's been a thing where I've definitely felt it have an impact on my life, and something that I've kind of introduced some friends to who were going through stuff, and they were very skeptical about it. I'm pretty lucky, actually, with that stuff, because, and it's probably why I didn't go to therapy earlier, is because I have those friends where I'll have the same conversation that I would have with a therapist. I was at this talk thing where Alan de Botton was talking, and he was talking about how, like, real friendship is just built on vulnerability. The second you open up to someone with, like, a real thing is when you actually get to know someone. So I definitely got, if there was someone that I was friends with and I felt like, oh, I want to be, like, close to them, just open up really kind of straight away. And doing that has definitely caused me to become much closer with like just people, just all of my friends in general, I'd say. When I like listen to the first album now, I can hear all of the places where I feel like I was playing it safe because I just didn't want to get it wrong. But I guess a big part of going into this album was I spent a lot of time kind of thinking about the whole process of make an album, then you put it out and you know, kind of release it and then you tour it. And all of the bits that I didn't enjoy as much, I kind of went into the second one feeling like I want to work out how to make all of this feel really fun. I would rather not do it than do it and it not be fun. I was kind of trying to redefine what success meant to me. For so long, especially in the band, it was like every album got bigger and every tour got bigger and it was like always growing. And I think when I went to make the first record, it was kind of freeing because I felt like, well, I don't have to do this anymore. That was a thing that I'd always said I wanted to do when we kind of started and when we started doing the music. It was like, kind of said to my manager, like the first tour that I do, I want it to be really small. And then I guess with this one, it was like, I just wanted to have fun. If you're happy doing what you're doing, then nobody can tell you you're not successful. I mean, it's so obvious, but it's also the kind of thing where probably 4 years ago, if someone had said that to me, I'd be like, okay. And also, I guess, when I was in the band, there was a big thing of, because we would make, the last 3 records we made on the road, and I had friends who were musicians who I knew would like, they would tour, and then they would take 6 months off. What, so you're just like, you're just making, that's it. On the last 2 tours as well, we bought this like old surveillance van and converted it into a studio so it would follow the tour around. So like at the venue, you'd go into this tiny little surveillance van that had no air conditioning. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's fun to record it like that. It's just a totally different process. Golden, we wrote on day 2 of being in Shangri-La. Well, he was in, we were working in a studio in London, and he was in, we were kind of trying to finish up, and he was in the studio next door. He came in at, well, I can't remember how it happened, but kind of just ended up in there listening. We listened and we all like had fish and chips and talked and stuff, and he's cool. I don't even know if we yeah, maybe we played in that. But none of that stuff was finished. I don't think that had horns on it yet. Lights Up, I don't think was written. Lights Up, Adore You, Treat People, and yeah, those 3 I think were all hadn't been done yet. In all honesty, I'd say I try and think about it as little as possible because it's a very strange, dynamic thing. It's also like a weird thing to think of about yourself.
Totally.
Like, I guess the thing with like sex in general is like, it used to feel so much more taboo for me to even like when we're in the band, like the thought of people thinking that I had sex was like, oh, now that's crazy. Like, what if they know? But it's like, you know? Even just like coming into this record, I wanted to feel a little less like guarded with stuff. I wanted to feel a lot freer and just more joyful and like honest. And I think a lot of the time with like, when there's like tabloid stuff, for example, of like people breaking up and, you know, it's like, I think people forget that there's like a person who's also broken up with someone, which is sad. Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's a weird one for me because I'm always like, you know, I don't like to kind of explain songs or like kind of explain the meaning behind them and stuff like that. But I think with this record, it's so much more open that it's like, but you've told us in the, like, it tells you what it is, you know. A thing that I like about kind of definitely where this record went, especially compared to the last one, is like when I start making an album, I don't feel like, oh, I'm making an album that I'm going to put out in December of next year. Or it feels like I just start writing some songs, and then, so then I can be as honest as possible. And then the time when you get to decide if you think it's too honest is when you're putting it out. And I never want to, like, trim that stuff down. I think I wanted to be true to it. I think the moment that I wrote it, I wanted to be true to the moment that I wrote it and how I was feeling then. Not great. I felt like I was realizing some stuff about, it was all part of like being more open and, you know, not being like, I don't care. It's like, no, like you get petty when, you know, when something's not going the way that you want. Like you get petty with that stuff. And I think there's something with Cherry where it's like, it's so pathetic, kind of, in a way. The night that I wrote it, we'd been writing for a few weeks and everyone had left the studio. It was me, Tyler, and Sammy, who's our engineer. And we were kind of sitting around talking at like 2 a.m. maybe. And I was saying that I was feeling a lot of pressure because the last record wasn't like a radio record. I felt like a lot of pressure to be making these like big songs. And I was like, I feel like this record has to be really big. So I feel like I need to make certain songs. You know, I have all these ideas about records that I want to make, and I want to make this record in 5 years, I want to make this record in 10 years, and I want to make, like, just these ideas for records that I want to make. And we had this conversation, and Tyler just said to me, you just have to make the record that you want to make right now. That's it. There's no, like, let me make sure this one's a commercial success so that I can make what I want later down the road. You just have to make the record that you want to make right now. So then we stayed up and wrote Cherry that night. So, I don't know, I think it was like, because it got added in later on and it felt so part of the song. It just felt like it needed it. We're friends and stuff, so I asked her if it was okay, and she was okay with it. I think she liked it. I was going out for dinner, I think, and I was getting picked up from Tom's house, so he came to pick me up. And I was showering, and he was like playing on the piano, and as I came out of the shower, he was playing like the dun 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 dun. I went and stood next to him at the piano, just in a towel, and we just kind of wrote the whole thing. I think it was like, for me, what I hadn't really experienced before was during the making of this record, the times when I felt good and I felt happy were like the happiest I've ever felt in my life. And the times when I felt sad was like the lowest I ever felt in my life. And I think it was kind of that feeling of when you can feel yourself kind of falling back into one of those moments where you're there. And the chorus says like, what am I now? Am I someone I don't want around? It was kind of like, I kind of started to feel like threads of, you know, where I could see myself becoming someone that I didn't want to be. And that was really hard. But I think that the thing that's nice with that is you get to write a song about it and be like, okay, next, you know. I'm so lucky with my family. They've always just been really supportive. And that's kind of all you can ask for with like doing this is obviously, you know, sometimes you don't want to go home and be like, I'm miserable right now. Because you want to be like, no, I'm fine, don't worry about me. And that happens too, but also have the relationship with my family where if I need to have that conversation, I can. The thing with my mum is she's less of like she's less of like a soundbite of advice. She's like the kindest woman I know, you know? So for me, it's always been like just watching her, how she is with people and stuff is like, I just don't think she has like a bad bone, which is an incredible thing to grow up around. To have that person like supporting you is, it's amazing. She's the best. She's like actually the best. So, friendships are probably just the most important thing to me. Like the people who I'm really close with are just, I'd say, way more important to me than anything else. I've definitely felt a difference in the conversations that I have with friends. I guess since you like experience death more. When you're a kid and you lose a grandparent or something.
Yeah.
And it's really sad, but also it's like, oh, grandparents are the people who die first. I think like the first time you lose like a friend is when you really feel like an adult. You're kind of like, wow. You know, I think you have those moments where, and every single person does it who's ever lost a friend, where, you know, whether you're close to them or not, I think everyone has that thing of like, I wish I'd just asked one more time if they were okay, you know? And if there's any positive thing that could possibly come out of that, it's that now the conversations that I have with friends about that stuff is way different in terms of like, you know, you ask a friend if they're okay and it's like, yeah, I'm good. And you're like, I'm like more prepared to have that like, no, but, you know. And that's like their conversations that I have with my friends now. And I think that's like a really important thing. And that obviously, like I said earlier, is where like real friendship comes from. I don't think everyone's lucky enough to have it, and I don't think it happens all the time. So it's also definitely changed over the last few years, but when I first came here, it was like, oh, if you get to move here, it means you've made it. Like, you did good. You know, you get this, like, it's everywhere you've seen in movies, and you're kind of like, oh, it's amazing. Like, you're in the mix, and you get to be here. And I think the more time I spent here, I was like, oh no, actually if you can come here and then leave. The thing with here is like, I've never felt at home here in LA, which is, you know, in one sense not great, but at the same time, I always feel like I'm on holiday. I really enjoy being here. A lot of my closest friends are here, which is where I usually feel the best, is when I can see those people. London's like just where I'll want to be at some point. And it's a weird one because after traveling so much, I don't look at the future as like, I'm going to live in this one place and then I'll never move anywhere. I think it's just about like being happy. I just want to be happy. And I feel pretty good right now. Yeah. I'd say probably my favorite memory from making this, one of at least, was the day we wrote Golden. We stopped and went to have dinner, and we were all sat in the kitchen at Shangri-La. And we kind of just played it like on one guitar, and everyone kind of singing it around the table. And it just felt really good. Like, it felt so much more joyous than last time. And I think that makes sense because, like you said, the first single was a 7-minute piano ballad, so like it would have been weird to come out being really joyous. And I think part of the thing with like the mushrooms thing for me is that I never do anything when I'm working. And I don't even drink when I'm working. If I'm touring or anything, I don't drink really at all. And when I was in the band, it was like, to me, it felt like it was so much bigger than any of us. So I was like, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Making this record felt like, I just felt so much more joyous. And I was with my friends, and we were in Malibu, it was like, I want to take some mushrooms, I'm going to take some, like, now's the time to have fun. Like, we're in Malibu, 24, and if you're taking anything to, like, have fun and be creative, then great. And I was with my friends, and making an album, you obviously get so in your head and you get so, like, self-conscious about everything, and you hit these bumps in the road where you're kind of thinking, is this good enough, and is it this enough, is it that enough? There's like an afterflow of some of that stuff where sometimes you take something and then for 10 days after you're like, don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be fine. I'm just trying to go through life being a little less worried about stuff. Definitely with, like, working, because ultimately it'll be okay. It's like if you don't hit the top of the chart, your life doesn't change. Like, I think realizing that, it's like, if that was what I was aiming at and then it didn't happen, then I'd feel so much worse. But redefining it for me has been amazing to be like, oh, but that's not the game I'm playing. Especially with that stuff, because Casey, I just love her. Her coming on tour was, I was more thinking of like, who do I want to watch every night for like 30 shows? You just want to be around like good stuff. I'm just a massive fan of hers. This is amazing. I'll be doing something, sure, probably. It's my favorite part. I mean, I've completely fallen in love with being in the studio now because of like the freedom that comes with it. And I think also now I'm kind of learning a different way of doing it. I think I'd get like chunks in the studio. I'd book like a studio for 2 months and then I'd go and I'd be in there every day because I felt like I'd kind of be like, well, we've booked it, so we have to be in there. And I think at some point, you've written everything that you have to write in the moment. And you realize you're not actually living because you've just been in the studio for 3 months. So I'm kind of working out still the balance of like, next time maybe I'll go in the studio for a couple weeks at a time while continuing to just kind of live. I think for me, it's like with the acting thing, like I never wanted to do it as like, just doing it to like take a job. There was something about like the Dunkirk thing where when I heard about it, I was like, I want to be involved in that so bad. I just remember the way that it kind of hit me and where I was excited to watch it, if like whether I was in it or not. I was like, I can't wait to see that. You know, if you get to make stuff that you're passionate about and you get to make something that makes you happy, if you're happy doing what you're doing, then nobody can tell you you're not successful.